though radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Monday. I am really happy to have Agustina with me. What's your official title of the Institute these days?
These days, I'm an managing editor and associate fellow.
All right, managing editor and associate editor at the Ayn Rand Institute, and really the Institute's preeminent writer on issues related to immigration. She has a regular column, basically, in the Orange County Register, and is through that carried in a bunch of different newspapers around the country. I guess it's sometimes syndicates. And in addition to all that, she's from Argentina, maybe the most exciting country in the world right now, at least in terms of good things happening. There's a lot of exciting places where bad things are happening, but Argentina seems to be one where good things are happening. So I want to start there. I want to start with, I mean, you grew up in Argentina and you came to the US as an adult. So you experienced Argentina, you know the culture, you know the country, you know how people live and people's attitudes. And you visit now. You've obviously still got family there, and you still have quite a few connections in Argentina. What is the difference? What's it like since Milei has come? Can you tell, when you visit there, that something has changed?
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much for having me, Yaron.
Sure.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, so since Milei got elected, there's been a change. So essentially, first things first, it's not like Argentina turned pro-free market overnight when he was elected. I think in a nutshell, what essentially happened was people were seeing what Venezuela was like. And they were seeing that if we continue with the Kirchners, with the left, with the Peronists, we were going to end up there. In fact, the Kirchners were big allies of Chavez back then, back a few years ago, and of Maduro in more recent years. So they essentially just went for the alternative that was most radical, most radically opposed and different from that from that option. So that's more things went into it, but that's essentially, I think, part of it. So that's important because I was in Argentina in November. I'm going again in a few weeks, and part of what has happened is that you see I see the economy recovering, and I talk to a lot of people there. I know a lot of people that have businesses, from a construction company CEO to people who have like video producers and who have like small businesses. And what they see is like, yeah, things are really hard still, because it's not easy to recover from decades of misery that Argentina and like statist controls and control of the economy. But it is, at least now, it is a predictable economy, which means that yes, things are expensive for several reasons and things are still adjusting, but at least the price of goods, what things are going to cost tomorrow, what they're going to cost in a week, what they're going to cost in a month. So that is a big deal, and a lot of people are supportive of that, and they're willing to put up with this period of time of adjustment until things really get back to normal. But there is also a lot of resistance from certain sectors, because this is a country where basically most people living there grew up in a very statist system, with the government telling them what they should do, how much grocery items cost. So there's a lot of resistance to what's going on, because now they're starting to be more responsible for their own life, essentially. And Milei is in the economically challenging a lot of the assumptions that people had. So that's why you see some of the protests and things like that. But honestly, I think those are mostly more like organized groups from the Peronists and the left that are causing that trouble.
And so Milei it did very well in the parliamentary election, and to some extent, I think people were surprised. Were you surprised at how well that went?
I was, because in September, Argentina had local elections in Buenos Aires, and Milei's party did poorly.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I honestly did not know what to think because that surprised me back in September. And I thought, I I can't believe this is actually how people are reacting to his measures, um but also it was Buenos Aires, which has always been like not the capital, Ciudad Autónoma, but the rest. And there's a lot of Peronism there. Peronism is very active there, so they have a lot of influence. So I thought that was a very bad sign to what was going to happen in the midterms. But it turns out that the midterms obviously were federal elections, and he ended up doing remarkably well. It wasn't the absolute best case scenario, but pretty close. So it sort of surprised me because of the previous election, but then I mean, I don't have evidence that there was fraud before, like in September in Buenos Aires. I wouldn't claim that, but it's interesting that the results in the same province were much more favorable to Milei in the federal elections, where they changed the voting system
Hmm.
to
Okay.
a different paper ballot. So that was an interesting fact. I think some people are looking into that, but honestly, I think people are really willing to go the distance with Milei and truly give him the 4 years to see how if he can turn things around. I think most people understand that 2 years weren't enough, so they voted for him.
And in the streets of Buenos Aires, is there a different vibe? I mean, do you have a sense of people? Is it different there on the ground?
Um, it is there's so the welfare state with the Peronists, with the Buenos Aires province government is huge. There's so many people receiving welfare and in exchange for votes and whatnot, and there's so many uh government employees. I'm pretty sure that in the province of Buenos Aires, the state government is probably the biggest employer there, or
Hmm.
pretty close. So a lot of people have a lot to lose if the parents go away. So it is a little bit different. But even then, I think because the life that they're living in many areas in Buenos Aires is truly not a way to live. It's extremely unsafe, where like you literally go out to work in the morning and you don't know if you'll come back. Like you have to have like a contingency plan in case someone literally shoots you.
Hmm.
So it's no way to live. It's extremely unsafe. And it's just constant misery. It's just hard to progress. People, end up going to the capital city to progress and like be able to pursue more ambitions because it's impossible to do it in the province of Buenos Aires for the most part. So I think a lot of people even then are getting just tired of that and want to see if there's an alternative to that.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in Buenos Aires last time, which was about, I don't know, a year and something ago, um, I I like to talk to the Uber drivers because
Yeah.
I think you get a sense of what's going on among the public. In London, I always talk to taxi drivers. You get a real sense of what the real kind of working class Brits think. And the Uber drivers were all positive about Milei. They were all enthusiastic and excited about him. And it was heartening and exciting to see. What is your assessment so far of Milei? That is, how much has he done? What do you think he still has to do in the 4 years that he has this round in order to win re-election, in order to really put Argentina on a path to prosperity?
So honestly, what he has to do is just be normal, which is because we like a normal as in like a decent leader who won't try all the BS and who won't try to trample over the rights of Argentinians like the Kirchners did for so long, which is, I understand, a high bar for a politician. But honestly, I think the most important thing, what Argentinians care about is the economy. That's it, because that it's really driving everything else. Argentina has two main issues, the economy, and then it's really unsafe. And part of the reason why it's unsafe is because of the economy. So the economy is truly the key to unlock prosperity for everybody, obviously, and freedom, economic freedom. And I think honestly, he's been doing a really good job in the economy. My assessment of him is positive in terms of his economic agenda. I support most of the things he's done. The most recent news is, for example, the labor reform, which is so long overdue, and it's going to be huge because, I mean, the Argentina, labor system is just really complicated, and it makes it impossible to hire people. It makes it extremely onerous for an employer to hire people. It makes it really hard for the employee to negotiate terms with the employer. It's just a disaster, and it's holding people back. That's why most people employed in Argentina are in informal, like meaning black market they're employed in the black market. That's one thing that he's trying to do, and I believe the reform past the Senate. It needs to go to the deputies now.
Hmm.
So that is going to be big. And also he's focusing on the economy and safety. One of the recent things he basically ended the piquetes, which is, you've seen it if you've been to Buenos Aires, you've seen it when people just block the streets and protest and just are hanging out there just protesting whatever, and it's completely disrupted to everyone else's lives. And that used to be considered like people have a right to do this and to disturb, the public thoroughfare. Milei said no more, and he basically all but ended that practice, at least in Buenos Aires. So it's more respectful, generally speaking, of the rule of law in that regard. So, and now there's a reform to lower the age where minors can be put on trial for a crime, essentially from 16 to 14, because there's a lot of, children, criminal, teenagers who, get high on drugs essentially and just go ahead and shoot people. And he's trying to fix that through that lowering the age. So there are several things that he's been doing well in terms of the economy and, criminality and safety. My assessment on those two things is generally positive. Now, foreign policy, he's better for sure than previous governments from the Kirchners. He's trying to become allies with Western countries and
Hmm.
generally, free countries versus the Kirchners who were like with Russia, China, Venezuela. So that is good. I don't love his extremely obsequent relationship with Trump. I don't think he needs to do that, and it's
Yep.
gonna come to bite him in the future. But generally, I approve, and of course, he has other things I disapprove of. I he's getting better now, but for a while, he really was not the biggest friend of freedom of the press. He would be not just critical, but threatening of, of the press, which,
Yeah.
the press can be extremely misleading, and, we know what it's same as in the United States. But he was coming across as really threatening the press. And then, of course, he has views on abortion that I don't share. I don't know that in his first term he's going to try to get rid of the right to an abortion. If he does that, he's going to try to do it on a potential second term.
Okay.
And of course, I have philosophical differences with him. He's an anarcho-capitalist,
He says
and
that. I don't know what it means inside his head, but yeah.
I sort of
He
know.
hates the state. He hates the state.
Yeah, he does. But and there are other things that he does that as as kids say, I find really cringe.
Yeah.
As in, it's just, you're the president. Can you please behave like the president? But anyway, that does not have a direct impact on policy, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's definitely a mixed character. But in the economy, I think he's essentially good for now. So we'll see.
So he promised when he first ran, he promised to dollarize the economy and to get off the peso. Any sense of why he hasn't, and whether that's still part of his platform for a second term?
I don't know why he hasn't. I mean, I have heard explanations from his minister of the economy. I am not clear on exactly the reasons why. Also, I'm not an economist, so a lot of that goes over my head.
Yeah.
But I do think it is part of the plan. So essentially, now it's not like you can't have transactions in the US dollars. You can, like, you have a current, like, you can, when you're entering a contract with someone, you can stipulate that you get paid or like the transaction happens in US dollars. So you can do that, which you couldn't do before. So for instance, if you're a landlord and you're renting a property, you can ask to for the contract to be such that you get paid instead of in pesos. That's the equivalent of in US dollars to the depending on how it's priced that day or that week or whatever. So that you can do, which has had, like, I understand a positive impact in housing. You can also get, like, if you sell a house, you can get paid in US dollars too,
Mhm.
because the peso is just too unstable still. Even I think the inflation is still very high and the peso is still very volatile. But I don't know more details as to why he has delayed more measures to that effect. I think potentially in his campaign for his second term, he might address that. I think
Yeah.
it's possible.
Okay, a few questions about Milei. Let's see. Could you compare, contrast Milei's actions and rhetoric versus the Tea Parties? How about the general population's reaction? So any sense of how does he sound like the Tea Party used to sound in the US? I don't know
Are
if
we
you have any
talking about
idea.
the Tea Party, the original Tea Party, or
Yeah, the
the or
original Tea
the
Party. Oh no, the
well,
Tea Party in
yeah,
the 2000s.
2000s. Look, one thing, and I think it applies in broader terms. Uh, First of all, I wasn't of age to understand much of it in the 2000s, but I was still in, like, what, primary school or something. So I haven't reviewed much of it lately, but one thing that stands out about Milei from any other really politician or political movement is that he's very philosophical. He's flawed, very flawed, and he he gets things wrong in my opinion. But he does talk about collectivism. He does talk to some extent about individualism. He
Hmm.
does talk about what freedom actually enables and what can help unlock in humanity. Um, and that is, and he actually has done his homework. He has read his authors that he likes to cite, and he's not just name dropping. He actually, and I know for a fact because I know people that know him, he has actually read those authors
Yep.
and actually learned from them. So I think his more philosophical view is something that I don't remember seeing in any other politician, not even in the US, which should be the standard for that because
Yep.
we're a country, like a philosophical country. So I think that is an important difference from most other politicians and political movements.
Yep. Uh, Roman asks, what would it take for Milei to become an objectivist?
Oof. Well, he has read Ayn Rand. Um, I'm pretty sure he read Atlas.
Hmm.
He, I think he read Capitalism, The Unknown Ideal. Um, well, one of the things that he would have to change is he would have to change his anarcho-capitalistic stance, and that might unlock a lot of other things. He
He'd have to
sees,
give up his religion. He'd
yes,
have to really
yes,
understand her epistemology and metaphysics
that's true. Yeah,
and the ethics. I think he's still got elements of collectivism.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah,
He has this view, for instance, of business people as which he says business people are moral, they're heroes, which I applaud. Is like amazing, great.
yeah,
Nobody says that like ever, which it's great that he's saying it. But he essentially this justification he gives is they are heroes, they're moral because they create so much prosperity for all of us.
yep,
And that I've heard a lot of because I do criticize him about that, and I get a lot of replies saying like, "Oh my God, that is such a minor difference." It is not because
yep,
you're embracing sort of altruism, right? And you're embracing collectivism when you're putting it
He's a
that way.
utilitarian. He's
Yeah.
embracing kind of libertarian utilitarianism. Yeah, he'd have to bury Rothbard very, very, very deep in his backyard, very deep. And Hoppe, both Rothbard and
Oh
Hoppe.
yeah.
And Hoppe should be easy because Hoppe hates Milei, so
Yeah, he does.
constantly is criticizing Milei. So
Yeah.
that one should be easy. Yeah, I mean, he'd have to choose to become an objectivist. Is there any way to find out if he's read Free Market Revolution, which I handed to him, and he said he would read it? So we have to find out if he read it.
I can try to find out, but
Okay.
yeah, I
See
don't
if you can
know.
find out.
Yeah,
See if you
I
can find
hope
out.
so.
I'm curious. I haven't heard from him, so I assume he didn't. If he read it, he didn't like it, or, um, but he's busy too.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. How much Argentinian trade is conducted through crypto?
I honestly don't know. Um, I I know that in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been like a big movement for crypto, and a lot of people are getting involved in crypto and trading in crypto. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to say like how much. Of course, I mean there's like a certain scandal that Milei is involved in with crypto, and we can go into that. But I'm not entirely sure. I know that like among younger people, it is gaining a lot of steam. It got to Argentina. It got to be like a real big thing in Argentina a little bit later than in the US. But I remember starting like 2013, people were already talking about it. I remember SFL chapters in Argentina, kind of like pushing that and having talks about it. And then in the last several years, it's finally
Yeah.
taken off, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think they mostly use what's called stable coins, which is a way basically to transact in dollars without the currency risk. But it's not, stable coins are not crypto in the sense of Bitcoin or stuff like that. Um, Somebody says, I mean, one thing says here, around 20% of Argentinians reported using cryptocurrency for transactions of some kind. My guess is, given Bitcoin's weakness, a lot less today than maybe a few months ago. Um, you don't want to transact in something as volatile as Bitcoin. Let's see. Da-da-da. All right. Michael says, is Milei exceeding expectations? How far can he or will he go?
I think he is exceeding expectations in terms of the economy. For instance, the inflation in 2025 was something like 31%, I believe, or something along those lines, which is extremely high, right? For especially for Americans here, it's like,
Yep.
oh my God, we would be on the streets just burning everything down. But for Argentina, it's remarkable. It's the lowest inflation in, I think, like 80 years or something like that.
Yep.
And I mean, people voted for him, yes, but like all the experts and whatever, almost nobody believed that he was going to be able to begin stabilizing the economy and to tame inflation. And he is doing it, which is, it's crazy. Like it's in terms of crazy to see this phenomenon happening in Argentina of all places. I never thought I'd see the day.
When
So,
he's managed to cut government spending, which no other politician anywhere in the world actually does. He's
yeah.
actually cut the amount of money, not the growth rate, the actual amount of money, right,
Yeah,
that they
which
spend.
yeah, nobody does that. Like, and part of it is he was not willing to compromise on that. He wanted to achieve zero deficit, which he did pretty shortly after he got elected, and he would not compromise on it. He would say that is one thing, like no matter what, I am not compromising on that because that is absolutely key. And he used to have this saying, which saying, "No hay plata." There's no money. Like
Yeah.
if people came to him like, "Oh, we need spending on this," and public works, no hay plata. And it was just no, like I don't have money. I don't have the money. I cannot make it up. I'm not gonna print it. Like end of story. And I think that is really valuable.
Yeah, I'm surprised inflation is not lower. Something's going on there with they're still printing money somehow, given inflation is 30%. So I'm curious what actually is going on, but I haven't. I need a dig deeper into it. Let's see. Roman asks, why did Milei join the Board of Peace?
Um, so I don't know. I mean, I think basically the main reason is Milei he wants to be really, really good friends with the United States, and he believes that the best way to do that is to basically do almost everything. And I'll say why I said almost, but almost anything that Trump wants him to do, and he wants to be really seen as really friendly, even in personal terms, even with Trump. He thinks that is helping him for some reason. I don't know that he actually admires Trump. I actually have reason to believe that he doesn't actually admire Trump or like
Oh,
him very much.
good.
So, but the way that he acts the opposite. So he's trying to show Trump that they're friends, essentially.
Yep.
I think it's a lot of pressure from, Trump. I think he waived the fee, whatever, however many millions or billions of dollars the entry fee was, or something like that. I don't know. Argentina didn't pay that, or maybe the fee was for permanent members and Argentina won't be a permanent member. I'm not sure, but I think it's mostly just appeasing Trump, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's right. Why is Uruguay more liberal regarding drugs than Argentina under Milei?
So I think Milei is making a big deal of rooting out the cartels because there are a lot of cartel activity, particularly in the province of Santa Fe. And there is also because of the long, that for a long time the Kirchners were allies with the Maduro regime, and the Maduro regime was involved in a lot of drug trafficking and
Yep.
cartel activity. Also, the the border, there's like we have like it's called Triple Frontera, the triple border in Argentina. That was just insane how much drug trafficking, human trafficking, and whatever happened. So Milei is trying to tone that down. He has been successful in part doing that, and I don't think that as a libertarian, I don't think that he personally is in favor of the war on drugs. But I don't know that he thinks it's something that it's a hill he should die on.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's part of it. And
And
why,
he has
yeah,
to appease his conservative
yeah,
coalition members, right? And they
exactly.
would be very opposed to drug liberalization. So even though he might want it, he couldn't get it. He couldn't get his coalition members. And you're right. Given the economy, it's not the battle he wants to fight right now.
Yeah. As to Uruguay, I honestly, I don't know. I don't know that they are that much more liberal, so to speak, than Argentina, in
They
in
had a
practical
they had
terms.
a president who I think decriminalized some drugs and was very pro drug liberalization. But Uruguay sounds like a pretty cool place. I mean, low taxes, nice beaches, modern city. Have you been there?
Yeah, I used to go there almost every summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it as nice as the stories? I've never been, so one of the few countries I haven't been to.
Yeah, it's nice. It's smaller. It's like a small Montevideo is like a very small Buenos Aires. It's like a short, you know, you jump on a little ship and a few minutes later you're in Montevideo in Uruguay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. It is, but it used to be part of Argentina. Like it's very, very similar to Argentina in terms of culture.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's nice. But also in Argentina, I mean, I'm not sure that it is that much more liberal in terms of drugs. I would have to look
Okay.
into that, but I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Can you elaborate on how Milei threatened the media and why it's not just a show of power to make media to act more responsibly or truthfully, or am I naive? Or is
Well, a
he
show of power coming from the president is threatening by
absolutely?
definition.
Yep.
So I think that's partly what it was. He still is, but he would show it uh, more often. He was extremely um, frustrated with how the media reported on him. And in a sense, I get it because the media would just make stuff up, or like, I understand. In terms, if you weren't president, right? But but sometimes he would even react really badly to really valid criticism, and he would get mad when people he would consider more or less ideological allies would criticize him with in good faith, saying like, oh, okay, we are aligned in many things, but this thing you're doing this way, I don't agree with that. I think we should do it this other way. He would really, really dislike that. He would, go off, like he would go on interviews and just start insulting, naming
Yeah.
specific journalists. And, if you are just a regular citizen, who cares? Like you can name whoever you want, you can call them names. Sure, I mean, it might not be very tasteful or whatever, because he would even use extreme profanity.
Yeah.
I mean, extreme profanity. But when you're the president and you're doing that, you can't. You have, you know, the government has the monopoly on the use of force. When you as a president are, saying that the press shouldn't report on this, they should report on that other thing, then that's a problem, because it's inherently threatening when the president does that sort of thing. And yeah, that's part of Milei. It's like and by the way, people reacted very badly to that. That's one of the things that in the elections, like when they were polling people, that's one of the things that really bother most people.
Yep.
And so he has
Good.
changed some now. But yeah, and it is just it was really not good and really, really worrying at one point. Again, he's getting better now, but we'll see what happens.
All right, let's see. Um, Gary says, no hay plata, no hay plata.
Yeah, there's no money.
Sounds like a great presidential slogan, almost as good as headlines. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. That's not even headlines. That's Milton Friedman, I thought. Thank you, Gary. Let's see. Roman asks, is Patagonia developing through liberalization? Are you seeing any changes in Patagonia?
So I know that there is so part of what Milei is trying to do is open Argentina to foreign investment, which the previous government was extremely nationalistic, wouldn't allow that. And part of it is oil, and there's quite a bit of oil in that area. And I know that there are some conversations Milei is having, and I'm not sure how developed and those plans are, but I know that there are plans for investments in Patagonia along those lines. But also, honestly, Argentina is such a beautiful country. Every
Mhm.
time I go, because I now live here and I live in California, so it's extremely beautiful.
Yep.
But even when I go and I go to places, like the Sierras in Córdoba, where my family is like, whoa, I sort of forgot how beautiful this is. And there's so much potential that is untapped because the economy has been so closed for so long. And Patagonia is one of those areas where there's so much potential for investment. Even the ski resorts,
Hmm.
which are in incredible areas, but they're underdeveloped. It's like you're skiing in the 70s basically, or the 80s, because there has been no investment. So there's a ton of potential there. And I think that it's only a matter of time until there's way more investment there in most areas.
What area has the shale oil? Because I think Argentina has the second largest reserves in the world
Vaca Muerta, it's
of
called.
fracking,
Yeah,
for fracking. Where's that?
Vaca Muerta.
And where's that?
That is let me look it up. Neuquén. Yeah, in the Patagonia, Neuquén.
In Patagonia area. All right.
Yeah, so sort of south west,
So
closer to Chile.
close to mountains.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned skiing. Jacob asks, how is skiing in Argentina? Who skis there? Is it only the ultra rich? Lots of Argentinians on visas in US ski resorts, so I'm curious.
Yeah, so skiing, well, I'll say I snowboard, first of all, but I have snowboarded in Las Leñas, which is in Mendoza, right at the limit with Chile. It's great. It's some of the best I've places where I've skied. It's very open. In that particular area, there's no trees, so it's very very open. The terrain is incredible. Lots of snow generally, and then you have Patagonia, which is more like I would compare it to more similar to like Northern California, like Lake Tahoe, that area.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Although remote and impossible to get to.
Yeah, it's really hard to get to Patagonia, and that's one thing also that should change. See how we can fix that problem.
Maybe they can pave some of the roads on the
Yeah,
way there.
yeah. Have more flights there too. Get working in those airports.
Yeah.
But generally, people, yeah, I mean, mostly upper middle class people have access to that because it is very expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, my scariest airplane flight, and I fly a lot, as you know. My scariest airplane flight ever was from Calafate
Mm-hmm.
to Bariloche.
Really? Why?
Yeah, I thought more than once we thought we were going to die. Um, Another
Wait,
time.
Aerolíneas Argentinas,
Yeah, I can't remember who the airline was,
yeah.
but it was just one thing after the other. I'll tell you the story one day. It
Okay.
was quite an adventure. Um, Roman says, does Argentina need more ports?
Um, I don't know. I don't it's not something that stands out as an immediate need to me.
I don't think so.
Buenos Aires is the biggest area of the port because it it comes from, many, many years ago where it's, closer to Europe. It's basically the closest area, maritime area to Europe. I don't think so. I don't think um, it's not something that stands out as needing attention,
No.
but maybe.
All right. How is trade volume with China versus the West changing? Do you know? Argentina's trade with China.
No, I don't. I haven't looked into this for a while. I know that essentially Milei started off saying like we will not trade with, basically saying we
Yeah.
won't trade with China, basically, like, but being very hostile to non-free countries, and then he kind of changed his tune quite a bit.
Yeah.
What I'll say is day to day, part of what happened is it used to be so imports used to be closed. So if you wanted to buy on Amazon or on, you know, Shane or one of these Chinese manufacturers or sellers or whatever, you wouldn't be able to do that for many reasons, but some of it include like import. It was extremely expensive to import. If you wanted to buy I don't know, pair of headphones, it was really hard to do and it would end up costing a lot. Now that is not the case anymore. So a lot of people are buying on these platforms from China, and that has for sure increased a lot.
All right. I think that's our last Milei question. All right. Let's shift to talk about immigration, the fun topic.
Hmm.
So, a lot has happened since I think we talked last about immigration, and of course, the big change is what's been happening with ICE over the last few months. So, give us maybe your assessment of kind of the state of immigration enforcement right now and how you evaluate it.
Well, I think that immigration enforcement is following the playbook set up by Obama, essentially. A lot of the things that we're seeing, not everything, because things are going further now,
Yeah.
but a lot of what we're seeing is what happened during the Obama administration, he set the tone, I think, for immigration enforcement. There are many important differences between what Trump is doing now and Trump's attitude towards immigration enforcement. It's very different from Obama's attitude towards immigration enforcement. We can talk about that. But essentially, I think that Trump is taking this precedent and everything that immigration laws technically allowed him to do and just running with it. But he's going further and further into like actually breaking the law. And I remember I gave a talk about this precisely this last June, I think it was. And at that point, most things he was doing, not everything, but most things were essentially what the law allowed, just to the extreme. Now he's just pushing it beyond what the law allows.
Give us some
So,
examples of him pushing beyond what the law allows.
so for instance, in Minnesota, there were a lot of people who were detained who had pending asylum applications, who were, or actually, I think some of them who already had asylum. He he rounded up a lot of these people, shipped them to Texas for to re-vet them allegedly, and then just let them go. Like, okay, just you're fine, go. But you were like they were detained for days, and that is just not like what are we doing? Also, I think obviously the detainment of U.S. citizens for exercising the freedom of speech. Technically, I mean, yeah, if someone is actually obstructing an investigation and actually getting in the way, technically, I believe they can be detained. But people filming, people just observing, I don't think that is the case. But of course, they're saying that you're obstructing an investigation or an operation and whatnot, and they're still being detained. So yeah, he's pushing it really far, and not to mention, which I think is the most outrageous thing that has happened, which is sending people to Secot in El Salvador.
Hmm.
I think that is well beyond, I think, any precedent at all in U.S. history, and that is completely new, and that is it's extremely scary, and I can't believe honestly that not more people have been talking about this, because that is one of the worst things he has done in terms of immigration.
Now he did stop that and is not doing it again after the court basically ordered it stopped, right? So
For now,
yeah.
um, but we'll see. I mean, remember part of what's still going on this saga with Abrego Garcia, this guy that was they could send him anywhere except to El Salvador.
Yep.
And they sent him to El Salvador, and then they didn't want to bring him back, and they had to bring him back, and they're still pursuing him and trying to essentially ruin his life.
Yep.
I don't, and now a judge last week, I think Thursday, I want to say, ordered the Trump administration to bring back many of the men that were sent to El Salvador and are now in Venezuela. He ordered them to be returned. I don't know that the Trump administration will comply with that order. So this saga, I think, sort of continues.
Hmm. What do you see as kind of where this is heading? They're leaving Minneapolis. Do you think they're going to lower the temperature and moderate, or what do you think is next for ICE?
I think ICE is going to go to a different city at some point. Remember, they've been sort of on a national tour. They were in Los Angeles, they were in Chicago, they were in, I forget where they were before Minnesota, but they're essentially, it's a national tour where like they go to cities and basically blue cities mostly. I think that that's what's going to happen next. I don't know where they will go next. It will really depend on what happens with the temporary protected status of immigrants from different, where there are like several diasporas. So for instance, they were going to go to, I think, Ohio at some point because there were, TPS was about to be revoked for Haitian immigrants. So they were
Hmm.
going to go there to catch them like literally the next day. So it really depends on what happens in and that TPS was about to be rescinded for Haitians, and then I just
What's
put
TPS?
put
Just tell us what TPS
uh,
is.
it's temporary protected status. It's an immigration status, which essentially means that a person is in America because their country of origin is going through a really turbulent time, whether it's a national, like a political upheaval, or a, natural catastrophe or something like that, where they're not safe, they cannot live in the country of origin. So they can come to the United States and they have temporary protected status, meaning they can be here for a while legally until the conditions in their countries improve. So the Trump administration was trying to terminate that for Haiti, like they did for Venezuela. And so I believe the plans were for ICE to go to some of the cities where there are a lot of Haitian immigrants and conduct operations there. A judge ended up postponing essentially this, so we don't know what's going to happen with that. But I do think they're going to continue this. I don't think that much has changed. One thing that was, I wouldn't say encouraging, but different was that Homan last week when he announced it and the ending of this operation in Minnesota, he said that there had been some mistakes, which is something that I have never heard this administration admit about anything at
Yeah.
all. So that's different, I guess. I wouldn't say it's encouraging, but it's different. I don't think they're going to tone it down because I think that this whole thing is Stephen Miller's dream, and I don't think he's going to give up that dream. So as long as Stephen Miller is there, this is going to continue.
Yeah, and I always thought Homan was one of the worst people, and now compared to everybody else, he seems like a more reasonable guy. I think that's how bad things are, is that Homan gets to be reasonable. So when people tell you, you know, but they're just following the law, right? They're arresting illegal immigrants. They're illegally here. They're deporting them. They shouldn't be here to begin with. What do you say to people about the whole issue of illegal immigration?
First of all, I would say, I mean, if this were about illegal immigration, it would look different, but it's just about immigration because they're also attacking legal immigrants, and I can expand on how that's happening. But so it is about immigration. They don't want immigration, period. It's not about being legal, illegal. They're trying to even attack naturalized citizens like you and me.
Hmm.
So it's not about illegal immigration, but it is true that illegal immigrants, I mean, if you read the law, like illegal immigrants are generally, fair game for deportation. It's true. The law is really truly draconian. But it's also true, I think, that there's a reason why this law has been exercised with so much discretion, usually, where like you had people that had been here for 20 years or 40 years, even I was reading a case earlier today, been here for 40 years working peacefully. They don't have legal status, but they were not deported and they were checking in with ICE monthly, going to an ICE office and saying like, hi, I'm here, I'm working, I'm not doing anything wrong. And ICE would it's essentially a discretion issue where like people who are peaceful, like we're going to let them be here.
Yep.
Which I'm not saying is great because there's no path to legalizing that sort of situation. That's why people don't do it. It's not like people are illegal because they want to. It's because there's no path. So I think what has to become increasingly clear, I think, is that, which can be, if you want to see it this way, a silver lining of all of this, is like Americans are confronting what the laws actually are. So I hope it becomes increasingly clear that the laws need to change.
So do you think there's any path to the laws changing? I mean, are you seeing any shift in kind of American people's attitude towards that? Because there's always been opposition to kind of legalizing the illegals.
Yes, but I think that the polls have been showing increasingly the opposite of what I think the Trump administration would want, which is a lot of support for immigration and a lot of support for expanding paths to immigrate here legally and for people who are here legally already to get to regularize their situation. I think some people say, okay, maybe not citizenship because, the left likes to talk about the path to citizenship. Some people say like, well, maybe not citizenship, but can they get a green card and just live out in the open, like meaning
Yeah.
like not, in the shadows as illegal immigrants? I think there's increasing support for that. And I think part of what's happening is as much as the Trump administration tries to paint immigrants as literal aliens from a different planet who are not human, who are not, who take all the welfare, so they are moochers, but also they take all the jobs, so they have some capacity to take all the welfare and take all the jobs and buy all the houses. They're these scapegoats and they try to dehumanize them, but people are seeing that the people getting deported are their neighbors, are their friends, are the people who work at the store, are the legal immigrants who married an American and went to their green card interview and got detained and are now have been detained for 3 months. So people are starting to see that these immigrants and these non-human entities that the Trump administration is trying to portray them as, these evil immigrants, are actually normal people like them. So I think there's a lot of coming to terms with that. And I think the support for more legal immigration and for potentially a path to legalization for legal immigrants, I think it's increasing.
Oh, well, maybe that'll be a good thing that comes out of all of this. We can hope. It's going to be tough. I still see so much hatred out there
Yeah.
for immigrants. It's there's a section of the population that just thinks this is the most important issue in the world.
Yeah, that's true, but I don't think it's a large part of the population. I don't think enough to stop potential reform. Now, the worry is also, what is our reform going to look like? Because I've said this many times, but the immigration system does not need to be reformed. It needs to be completely rethought.
Yep.
So to actually be worthy of this country. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but I do hope that, we get reforms that could inch us a little bit closer to freedom, but we'll see.
So Marilyn asks, what are some of the first changes you would make to U.S. immigration law? Also, thank you for the introducing me to the American Immigration Council and their wonderful work. So
Yeah.
what would be some of the first changes you would make?
So some of the first changes I would make is, I think the best way to, well, obviously the border numbers are much better now, because obviously if you turn America into what it is right now, nobody's going to want to come. That's one way to address immigration, just like the way Cuba addressed immigration. They turn into an awful place, so nobody wants to go there. So I'm not saying the America is on par with Cuba, but like if you inflict terror on people, they're not going to want to come here.
Yep.
So one thing I would do in a normal time is expand pathways for the people actually crossing through the border, which people cross through the border because they do not have another way to come here. So expand work visas for the type of workers like as they call it, non-skilled, unskilled, which I don't like that way of putting it, but that's what it's called, unskilled immigration. So your gardener can come here, your waiter can come here, your chef can come here, and just they don't have they don't have a university degree, or they don't have any specialization like that, but so they can come here legally. And there are many ways where, like, you can have the employer sponsor them and then sort of vouch for them. And if they commit a crime or so, I don't know, there's so many ways and so many proposals that people have, proposed to address certain issues about that. So that is one change. I would also, in terms of H-1B visas, for example, I would uncap the H-1B visas. They're also, in terms of, so green cards are extremely limited. I would uncap green cards as well, and I would change. So in a given category of employment green cards, say you get a green card and then you want to bring your family, and then you bring your wife and a kid, and then it turns out that two of those green cards in that very limited amount for workers go to your wife and your kid. So that needs to stop. There needs to be extra green cards for those people, essentially. So those are, I think, some of the things that need to happen also, but there's so much that even like people don't realize. Another thing is, if you're here on an H-1B and you've been here if you're from India, for example, and you're trying to apply for a green card, it takes about over 100 years for your date to become current if you're from India and want a green card. So you're gonna be waiting, you're gonna die and you're not gonna be able to get a green card. You're gonna be able to be in the United States, but essentially on your H-1B status, which is a temporary visa, and while you are waiting for your green card. In the meantime, you have had kids, for example, right? The problem is when your kid turns 18 and you don't have a green card, they themselves lose status
Yep.
if they weren't born in the United States.
And if you lose your job, like thousands of Indian engineers just did on Amazon when they fired people, you have to leave the country.
Yeah, you can try to find another job. And if you get it, that's great. But if you can, I think the grace period is something like 60 days, I
Yeah.
believe. If you can find it, I mean, off you go.
Yeah.
So
It's hard.
there's so many injustices. The kids that came here when they were 2 years old and now are turning 18, sorry, 21, and then, no, not 18, 21. And then they're going to have to potentially leave the country if they cannot get a different visa for themselves. That
Mhm.
is absolutely outrageous. And those things are some of the things that need to change. There's a lot.
Yep. So you are going to be publishing an article about Ayn Rand's immigration to the United States. So what can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, so I could tell you a lot, so I'm going to try to keep it brief. This is my favorite project that I have ever worked on. Um, so essentially, I love my favorite subgenre of books is like an immigrant memoir, like a good immigration story. I have read so many of those. It's just my favorite thing. I find it incredibly inspiring, and it's just as an immigrant myself, I see myself in many of these people writing these stories or telling these stories. And I always really, other than admire Ayn Rand for her philosophy, I do admire her a lot because of her personal story. I think it's an incredible story as an immigrant from Soviet Russia. And I was always fascinated by her journey here. And I realized, I mean, there are a lot of excellent work that objective scholars have done, a biographical work. But I always wanted to read like the can her immigration story specifically. And I
Hmm.
asked myself questions like, why did she actually decide to come here? Why not go somewhere else? What was her relationship with her family when she just immigrated here? What do we know what she thought, what she maybe wrote other people, like when she arrived? I wonder, like, does she miss her mom like I miss my mom? Like that sort of those sorts of questions. And I couldn't find, an article or a book or anything telling her life from that specific angle. So I decided to write it myself. And we've been working. I asked Brandon Lisi from the Ayn Rand Archives to write it with me because obviously there's a lot of archival and biographical material that he handles very well that needed to be in
Hmm.
the article. So we've been working together for about a year developing this article where we tell her immigration story. And her immigration story actually starts when she was a little girl. It doesn't start when she, gets on a boat and comes to America. It starts many, many years before, and we tell that full story, and we tell her story when she gets here and how her life is like here as a new immigrant.
So, uh, can you tell us anything about how she came to the United States? Because I mean, this is 1926. The immigration law passed in 1924 that really restricted immigration from Eastern Europe, basically, and Russia, basically restricted immigration overall. So how did she get in?
Yeah, so yeah, the Johnson-Reed Act in 1924 was the first big sweeping immigration regulation in the United States. There had been others before, but this was the biggest one that encompassed most of Eastern Europe and all of Asia, most of Asia. So for there were about 2,000. So that's what law ladies essentially implement quotas. So each country only could bring certain number of immigrants. The quota for Russia was like 2,200. and you had to meet certain requirements to be able to immigrate to the United States. Ayn Rand, even if she had met those requirements, I mean, 2,200 visas may seem like a lot, but it's actually not a lot at all, not even back then. So essentially, what she did is, well, first she managed to leave Soviet Russia to get an exit permit, which because Soviet Russia heavily restricted who could come and go. You couldn't leave just freely.
Hmm.
And she was able to get out of Russia, and then she goes to the embassy in Riga, in Latvia, because the US didn't have diplomatic relations with Russia because it did not recognize Soviet Russia as a legitimate government. So she goes to Latvia and she essentially lies to the embassy officer, to the consular officer, telling him that she was only going to visit family in Chicago and that she had no intention to stay in the United States. She even tells him that she she implies this is all based on her recollections many years later, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly what happened. It's her memory. But she says that she essentially implied that she was going to marry a Russian man. So obviously she's going to come back. And the consular officer, grants her the visitor visa. So with a visitor visa, she was able to come to United States, and then she stays, and she marries an American, Frank O'Connor, and then she gets permanent residency through him.
So she lied to get into the U.S.
Yep.
and she came on a visitor visa, and yet she worked.
She did work, which was at the time not allowed.
Wouldn't be allowed today either, right? So
Nope.
she was clearly deportable.
Well, we go, yes. I mean, you have to also keep in mind that immigration regulations were not what they are today in terms of how they
Yes.
were even perceived in society.
Yep.
So, right now, like if you try to work illegally, I mean, it's really hard, but like you can get some job, but like if any big job that you want, actual reputable job, you're gonna have to go with E-Verify, and it's gonna be really hard to get a job illegally. Back then it wasn't like that, and people have it top of mind, right? Like, oh, the illegals are working. Like, it's illegal work, even if
Yep.
you are, in favor of immigration, you keep it in mind because also they can come after you and whatever. So it wasn't like that back then.
It was a
But
different
she,
America. Yeah.
yeah. But and this was the start of these regulations. The 1920s, these regulations were starting to slowly gain steam, but because in part of how communications happened, it didn't happen even as fast as now. People took a little bit longer to catch up to these things. So it wasn't really that much of a thing. But it is true that she did break the law by working.
Yep.
Yep,
All right. One other thing. So last year you became a U.S. citizen.
I did. Yep,
Congratulations.
thank you.
So, given the shitty state of America today, I can say that. How does it feel to become an immigrant in spite of that?
Well, I became an American on paper at least on July 3rd last year, right before the 4th of July.
Yeah.
And it was like with my wedding, like the most important day of my life. Like I I can literally start crying every when I think about I have my oath of allegiance, I have it recorded on video. Every time I watch it, it's guaranteed I'm gonna start sobbing because it was such an important moment in my life.
Yep.
And it was already in the midst of this chaos in America. I remember at that point, it was right at the start of these of ICE agents starting to show up to immigration interviews, and it was the start of the big operations by ICE that was shortly before my interview. Was a few weeks before my oath ceremony, and that's when I started. They came to LA,
Hmm.
and I remember after my interview, I saw ICE agents got on the elevator with me at the building right after my interview. And it was at that point already was terrifying, but it
Yeah.
wasn't even what it is now.
Yeah.
But we were already in the midst of this, and honestly, I would do it again,
Yeah.
like now, tomorrow, next week, in 10 years, because to me, what's going on right now, it is not representative of the values that I am pledging allegiance to.
Hmm.
And it's not, I don't think it's representative of America, what's going on right now. I think it is a betrayal of America.
Yep.
I think it's a betrayal of our values, our constitution that I have vowed to defend, and I will. So I I am proud to be an American, and I'm proud to have become an American, even in challenging times that could have been like, well, maybe I do it, but like because I'm gonna be safer, but kind of like not make a big deal about it. No, I make a big deal about it, and I told everyone because, I am proud of it, and I, I am, I want to defend this country to the best of my ability against what's happening right now, which I think is basically un-American.
Good. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. I want to hear
Yeah.
your story at some point,
Which one?
your naturalization
Oh.
journey.
Yeah, I can't remember much of it. So, I have a lousy memory. So anybody want to do a Yaron Brook biography, it's hopeless. Um, but I got naturalized in 2003. For some reason, Revital got naturalized before me. There was some technical issue. I can't remember what it was. But, I had to go through student visa for 6 years, practical training visa for
Yeah.
1 year. Was it H1 something? And I don't think it was an H1B, but like a special talent visa.
The O1.
I think it was an O1, something like that.
Yeah.
Then a green card, then citizenship. And each step is a nightmare. Each step is paperwork. Luckily, because I was working for university, they did most of the work and it all went through fine. But I didn't get my citizenship until I was already working for the institute for AOI.
Mm.
So, but yeah, it took 16 years
Yeah.
from the time I got to the United States until I became a citizen. It was 16 years.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, let's see. We've got some questions. Okay, Wes says, Augustina, do you read fiction? Any favorite genres or authors? Looking for some recommendations for new stuff.
I don't read a lot of fiction, honestly. What was the last fiction I read? I read, I read, I read a novel that was the equivalent of watching a dumb Netflix show that you just want to numb your mind because I was a little stressed about some things and I wanted to, so I read it in like 3 days
So
or something like
nothing
that.
to recommend. Yeah.
Nothing to recommend. I will say my favorite book of fiction, leaving aside the Rand's fiction, which is genuinely my favorite, but leaving that aside, which people listening to you don't need that recommendation.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't. So it's I would say the book Werther by Goethe is like really old book, 1700s. It's I think it's called an epistolary novel. It's essentially letters that the character writes to someone else.
Hmm.
It's extremely sad, but it is
Yeah.
so beautiful. I love poetry, so it's very poetic. Um, so if you want to read something sad but really deep and beautiful and moving, I recommend that book. Very
Say
old, but it
again,
holds
what
up.
what what is called? Slower?
Called Werther, or sometimes they call it The Sorrows of Young Werther, like
Oh, by
W-E.
Goethe. By
Yeah,
Goethe. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
one of the first romantics in Goethe and Schiller were the first romantics really in Germany.
oh, and one book I finished that I actually had never read the whole thing. I had read many years ago in a British version is Les Mis. I
Yeah.
actually read it. I finished it late last year. I did the one chapter a day thing.
Yep.
Um, Loved it. But yeah, also this audience does not need that recommendation.
Yeah.
So
Hugo. You got to read Hugo, guys. Sorry, Wes.
Yeah, sorry
I'll
about
keep
that.
trying.
Fiction, non-fiction, I got you, but not with the fiction.
Not the fiction. All right. Shazbot, I don't know how you are with movies. Okay. Shazbot says, is the character Private Vasquez in Aliens, the movie, a hero to Hispanic people, even though she was played by a non-Hispanic actress?
I Alien, like the one with Sigourney Weaver. Is
Yeah,
that the
but I think
movie?
this is the second one, Aliens with an S at the end. So it was number two. And there was a
I
character.
I've never heard that, meaning of her being a hero, but also don't rely on me because I am with movies even more than I am with fiction. I
Okay.
am the least movie person you will ever meet. Like I don't watch movies. Very rarely watch a movie. Maybe I watch 2 movies a year, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Well, all right.
Yeah.
Uh, so don't ask about movies. All right, let's see.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to help you. Like other than a few Disney movies and
No,
I don't
Shazbot
even the
isn't.
Eras Tour movie, does that count?
Which one?
And the Eras Tour, Taylor Swift. That's probably the
And
last
she's a
movie that
Taylor
I watched.
Swift fan, so I don't know. All right. Okay. Lone Dissenter asks, Agustina, tell us about how ARI's educational programs benefited you, your intellectual career, and anything else meaningful to you. More people should take the opportunity to learn with ARI or donate to support the programs.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, I I actually recently did an interview about this. Maybe I can find a way to share it, but essentially, the ARI educational programs have benefited me from the start of my journey with objectivism. Back in like 2013, when ARI Campus first started, that the website was like really rudimentary and nothing like it is today. There were like maybe, I don't know, 10 courses online,
Hmm.
and I found it. I was still living in Argentina. I had no contact with ARI at that point, but I Googling Ayn Rand and whatnot, I found the campus. And I started listening to the courses. I would listen them on my phone while going to, because I walked to school and I walked a lot, so I would listen and then at home and whatnot. And I remember I listened to the Fountainhead course. I listened to the Anthem course. I listened to a course by Onkar, The Morality of Freedom, which is still available. Like all of it, like you guys should go and listen. And it just blew my mind. The depth of the analysis of the novels, and then Onkar's perspective, the morality of freedom, like that phrase is something that I had never heard before. And how Onkar talked about it, how he taught the subject, I found it completely mind blowing. And then I consumed everything campus. Then I ended up getting more in touch with ARI and coming briefly for a few weeks here to the Irvine office. That's when first met you, Yaron. You
Yep.
probably don't remember.
No.
Of course not. We were eating tacos, I remember. We had a lunch outside of the office, and I was because I listened to you a lot. I still do listen to you, but at that point it was like my light went off. At that point it was basically every day, and I was really nervous to meet you, Jerome, because I was like, oh my God, it's Jerome Brook.
Everybody is, I know. You shouldn't
Um,
be, guys.
Now I'm not nervous anymore, Jerome. Don't worry.
That's good.
And then I was accepted into the Objectivist Academic Center, which was a precursor of the Ayn Rand University and ARI courses. It was very competitive. It was not open to like it is now to most people who want to learn. So the Objectivist Academic Center really was honestly more formative than law school. And I did 6 years of law school because I went to law school in Argentina and it's longer
Hmm.
and it's harder, frankly. But so it completely changed my way of thinking and of understanding objectivism. I thought I knew objectivism until I went to the OIC. And then after that, shortly after I finished OIC, I was able to come on board and work at ARI and been taking courses ever since. I actually did retook many of the OIC classes because sometimes each year they would be different. And then with the course I took many of the courses that what we're called now the AI Live courses, and it's just completely changed the way. It's a lot of methodology, which is something that I really needed, and it's so incredibly valuable. I really wish more people would be aware of these programs and that they are available. It's top notch, truly, including also the writing course that Keith Lockridge still teaches. I used to be TA for that course. It completely changed my way of writing. Writing used to be torture for me before I took that course, which taught me an actual methodology, an actual process, an actual writing process. So it's been amazing, and I still take courses, and I recommend it to everybody. And yeah, the only way we can keep this going is if people support that work through their donations.
Absolutely. That's great. Agustina is one of our real success stories at AOI. All right, Shazbot, more movies. Have you seen the film District 9? What do you think of the way it portrayed the immigration problem? I don't know if you've seen District 9. I saw District
No.
9. Is this the one in South Africa? God. I can't remember Shazbot. It was like an independent movie, but I can't remember the details of it. I'm sure it was good. All right. Richard says, when my stepson became a U.S. citizen, the oath included that he would take up arms to defend the country. Do you recall that part of the oath? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I recall it's the part that says I'm blanking out on exactly how it reads, but essentially if you are required to take up arms to defend the United States or to perform some sort of civilian like duties related to that, that you will. Um, I mean, honestly, if required, and it is, I mean, we're assuming that we have a pro-America government, right? And like what we're doing here is we are being America.
Hmm.
I would defend this country. I don't, I mean, it really depends on the context, but I would go to great lengths to defend this country. I mean, I mean, you probably don't want to give me a gun. I have no idea how to shoot. Like, I would shoot myself before I can shoot anybody else or anything else. And I'm not the person you believe. If I would require to perform other things that I can actually do, um, in a context we're talking of course, it's would be extremely rare and weird, and it's a hypothetical, but I would defend this country if need be, and I do defend this country through my speech. So I would,
Exactly.
I put my life on the line, sort of, not my life, but I put my thoughts out there and expose myself to a lot of things in order to defend this country, and if need
Hmm.
be, which would be extremely weird and rare, but I would do the same with my body.
Yep.
So
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, the most important defense of America is an intellectual defense of America, and
yeah.
that is what we are doing. Um, all right, Michael, um, can ICE be defeated? Has it already been largely defeated?
Um, I think that because they have gotten so out of control, and basically every American, or not basically, but every American is aware of what ICE is and how it operates. There is a lot of support now to abolish ICE, which used to be a very extreme, very left, a slogan from the left that people used to consider extremely, extremely extreme. Now it's basically mainstream. So I think there is going to be a push to reform DHS. Remember, DHS came to exist after 9/11.
Hmm.
And as a reaction to that, and there were many problems with DHS from the get-go, but I think there is a lot of political, like, people, Americans are disapproving of these tactics, and they want to abolish ICE. The thing is, abolish ICE is such a, it's very like lukewarm, it's like tepid. You don't like, you need to change the immigration system. ICE exists because we have laws that need to be enforced in this way, meaning that require this sort of enforcement. So you need to change the whole thing. Abolish ICE is just what are you gonna do? Like, who's gonna enforce the immigration laws? You have to have, if the immigration laws needs to be enforced to this extent, and you have so many violators of the law because it's impossible to come legally to America, basically. Who's gonna enforce them? You need to change the whole thing.
Yep. Thanks, Michael. Dave, $50. Thank you, Dave. And I saw the sticker as well. Thank you for that. Dave says, thank you for the transparent exposition on immigration. So thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. Okay, Jacob, what drives the youth? I think this is related to Argentina. What drives the youth to drugs and violence? Where are the parents or adult figures to stop a 14-year-old from getting high and shooting people?
I think a lot of it is, so you see violence and you see drugs in America too, but it is different. And you see obviously gun violence in America, but it's different. I think in Argentina, it's mostly poverty. I mean, and of course, but it's not poverty of, as in, I mean, it's deeper. It's generations of poverty, of generations where people have been very poor, or they have been basically surviving because of government welfare. Essentially, we're gonna pay you to do nothing. So it's generations of people that have grown up not seeing their parents get up early in the morning to go to work.
Yep.
And so it's a life devoid of work. It's a life that doesn't have much meaning even. So
And
there's not nothing to exactly.
hopelessness, because
There's
there's no
nothing to
future.
strive for. Yeah. There's nothing. Life is just hanging out with your homies, just drinking, doing drugs, and you want the latest phone, but you don't have enough money for the latest phone, but you want it. And it's you essentially people get high in order to be able to gain the courage to go shoot someone for their phone or their shoes or whatever. It's a generational problem. Honestly, it's a philosophical and generational issue. I blame for a lot of it. I blame Peron, who is the one that grew the welfare state dramatically and made people think that they were entitled to everything they needed. Eva Peron said, where there is a need, there is a right. Meaning,
Yep.
whatever you need, it is your right to get it. It is your right to get it, so I'm gonna go shoot. If it's my right to get it, I'm gonna go get it from someone else. It is my right. So I blame Peron for mostly him for the philosophical demise of Argentina. Um, but yeah, it's essentially that. It's a philosophical issue deep down.
All right, John, who has a single track mind. He's got three questions. We'll start with this one. Augustina, do you support open immigration of Muslims?
Oh, I think I know who this person is. I don't know if it's this person, but
Maybe
there's
not.
someone who okay.
There are plenty of them, so I don't know. I don't know
Okay,
if you know
that's
this
true.
particular John, but
Yeah.
maybe he's a Brit.
Yeah. I don't know, like when I don't like to use the phrase open borders or open immigration because I do believe in not many restrictions, that's not true, but in several restrictions of immigration, at least three of them. One of them is for national security reasons. And I think it depends on what the Muslim is, who the Muslim is, essentially. What is this? Is in this individual part of Hamas? Is this individual part of Al Qaeda? Well, no. So no, open immigration, meaning no restrictions whatsoever. No, I don't support that.
All right, let's finish up with John. Okay, he asks, Augustina, do you think Islamic immigration into Europe has been good? For example, Rotherham. Rotherham is yeah.
Um, I don't think it has been in many respects because Europe has been horrible. Europe is a region where like they stand for nothing and they let anything go. They let anything happen for fear of coming off as racist. They have no ideology. They have no values to protect, and they have let anybody run over them, like essentially, no character whatsoever. Sorry, Europeans, no offense. But what Europe has done is really truly not enforce the law. I have read some about this. Onkar, Nikos, Sotirakopoulos, and I have a podcast episode that we did a couple years ago about the problems with immigration in Europe and why the way that Europe has treated immigration is not how we should do it in the United States. But I don't think that can happen in the United States because we actually we we have way more of a backbone than Europe, and we have values to defend, and we know what we stand for. I don't think that that can ever happen here. I
All
mean,
right.
not ever. I mean, you again, as long as we continue being America,
Yep. All
which
right.
is not, which is not, we should not take that for granted, essentially.
Yep. All right. Continuing with John's single track mind. Augustina, what is an ideal immigration policy with regard to Islamic immigration?
Um, it the same as an ideal immigration policy for everyone else. People who are a threat to national security objectively, and you have to define what that is. People who have a criminal background, people who have infectious disease that is contagious, reaching a certain level, they should not be allowed to come here.
But everybody else should.
Yes, basically. I mean, this is in an ideal society. We are not there. I mean, I don't think you should open the border again. But metaphorically speaking, I don't think you should overnight open the border. That would be chaotic. You cannot deregulate like, big things like that overnight because it's authoritarian, it's chaotic. Rand herself said that.
Mhm. All right, let's see. I like numbers. Um, Says, do the ends justify the means when people falsely claim TPS status in their quest to achieve the American dream?
You cannot falsely claim TPS. You have to come from a country where it actually there is an issue objectively, like Venezuela, where there's a lot of political prosecution. So you apply, and then the government, if you meet the requirements of TPS, you may get temporary protected status.
And so, I mean, it's a funny question after we just told you that Ayn Rand lied in order to get into the United States. Um, if you're running from a dictatorship and it's a life or death issue, yeah, absolutely. If you have to lie in order to, so you could, I guess what he means is if you say, I'm a political refugee or I need asylum, right? But
Right.
then you go in front of a judge and the judge evaluates whether that is true or not.
Yeah, but like I think, but this person, I mean, I'm not sure they know what TPS is. It's not the same as asylum.
Yep.
They're very different aspects of the immigration law. It is, I mean, you asking for asylum, like TPS, you don't have that direct of a path towards citizenship or whatever as you do with asylum. So if the question is about asylum, that's a different story. But yeah, you're gonna have to eventually prove in front of a judge that you actually have these issues, that you are politically prosecuted and all of that.
It just shows you how complicated the American immigration system is, unnecessarily so. Roman says, when should immigrants be granted citizenship?
I think, and I think I'm not sure. Like, I think you, Yaron, think it should be really, really hard in many years. I think that is your view, roughly speaking. I
I think
don't
no.
particularly.
I think very few people should be citizens, period. I think Americans should be citizens either. So I
Yeah.
have a radical view about citizenship. I think voting needs to be earned, and just because you were born in this country doesn't mean you should be able to vote.
Yeah, I think, and I know a lot of people that I respect that think it should be extremely, extremely hard for immigrants to gain citizenship. I don't think it should be that way. I think it should be not as difficult as other things. I think you can discuss how many years after Right now, it's depends on when you get your green card and how you got your green card. It's 5 years or 3 years after you got your green card. How you got your green card maybe like may take 20 years or may take two. It really
Yeah.
depends.
Yeah.
I think that if you pass your test and you show that you know what like America's political system, um, given that given that people are subject to potentially other potentially constraints in their countries of origin. I'm saying this because I'm thinking about some people that have been here for years and that are still and can't apply for citizenship and are still being like either taxed by their home countries or subject to their legislation in many respects. I think they should be able to renounce that citizenship potentially if they want and be able to become Americans if they so desire. Again, for me, also becoming an American is was such a philosophical choice. It wasn't paperwork.
Yeah.
And honestly, for most people that I've met that have become Americans, for most of them, it was never a paperwork thing. It
Yeah.
was actually a big moving event and it meant a lot to them. And I think that is different from what it is in Europe, for instance, because again, we stand for something. So yeah, I think you can discuss how long, how many years, but I think it shouldn't take as long as it takes in many cases.
All right, let's see. Roman says, is it wrong to deport criminal immigrants if you believe in the morality of your justice system and deportation means exporting evil?
Wait, can you repeat that?
So he's asking if you deport a criminal,
Yeah.
then why would you deport him? He's a criminal. You sentence him to jail. He goes to jail. Why are you kind of exporting his evil to another country?
Well, if you send that person back to where you're not exporting, if you send that person back to where they came from, I am in favor of deporting criminals, 100% violent criminals. Um, and but yeah, there's something to say about whether you I think deportation is a big punishment. But there's something to say about, and that is a question that has to be answered by potentially legislator. How does the time that they have to serve for whatever crime they committed sort of interact with the deportation?
Yeah.
Because there are some cases where people have committed heinous crimes, as some immigrants do, just like some Americans do, and they have been deported and not served their time, and were just deported. So, but there's also something to say about why would America spend taxpayer dollars when this person can just be, meaning holding this person in prison when they can be deported and someone else can deal with it. That those are questions that would need to be answered, but I don't think it's unjust to deport criminals, if that's part of the question.
Yeah. Um, Roman asked, how do you defeat Trump volkism? I guess blood and soil and
Oh,
kind of nationalism.
I mean, this is gonna sound kind of like a cliche for people listening, but honestly, by pushing better ideas. Um, I mean, I mean, I wouldn't say that Trump has a philosophical view. By Trump, I think you mean mostly the administration.
Yeah.
Because Trump, I don't think he even reaches the level of a nationalist, not even that.
Nope.
Um, but I mean, the only solution that I can think of is better ideas. And I know that sounds very abstract, but it's just the truth. Individualism.
Yep.
And yeah, that is the only way. That's why we're fighting this battle.
All right, Gary says mainstream America, I think, would be very excited for a politician who made immigration, green card, work permits, residency easy, but citizenship and welfare very, very hard. I mean, that's
Um,
part of why I say it should take a long time to be citizens. Partially, it's to get people to admit that they really don't want these people. It has nothing to do with them becoming citizen, and so it's like they'll take welfare. Okay, so we'll ban welfare for immigrants. Are you okay with immigrants then? Not really. We won't give them citizenship, but they can stay here for the rest of your life. Are you okay with immigrants then? Not really. So partially it's to push them to admit to what really is driving them, which is just a hatred of other people. But I wish that was right, Gary. I mean, that would be great. I don't know if you
That
have.
would be better than what we have now. But yeah, I don't think the problem that Americans have is with people becoming citizens.
Yep.
On the contrary, my own experience with in America when I've discussed me becoming a citizen is like, oh my God, it's best news I've heard today.
Yep.
Like it's just very welcoming. So yeah, I don't know that focusing on not giving citizenship shortly after getting a green card or whatever, I'm not sure that
It's
would make a difference.
it's the argument that um, if you allow lots of people in from socialist countries, they bring their socialism with them, and then they all vote Democratic. So my response to that, okay, so let's make it so they never vote. So don't make them citizens. Are you willing to accept them then? And that's when I think you push them into the corner and you realize that that's not what's really going on.
Yeah, but like honestly, to that argument, I sort of respond, yeah, that's true. That's why Florida is notoriously socialistic and communistic.
And
All those
Texas,
Cubans,
and
you
Texas,
know, yeah,
all those Mexicans in Texas voting. Yeah, I know.
yeah, yeah.
Lone Dissenter says citizenship, welfare, and voting for immigrants are red herring issues. Absolutely. If immigrants could never be citizens, get welfare, or vote, MAGA will still oppose them. Racism and zero-sum mentality. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Sadly. For MAGA, that's true.
Yeah, because even Trump got, I think, close to or maybe record um, numbers of votes from Hispanic voters and
Yep.
naturalized citizens and whatnot,
Yep.
and still,
No,
here we are. So
I don't think he will again. We'll see. But all right, Roman says, what do you answer people who oppose immigration because they fear for their lives and jobs? How do you convince them to support immigration?
So I don't know that if like having a conversation or something, you can convince someone to support immigration. But I can tell you one thing that I challenge is the old saying of like, oh, the immigrants take the jobs, which has been, I've done research on this and has been a thing since the 1800s. So it's nothing new at all. Most of the arguments against immigration are old, really,
Yep.
really old, since early 1800s, sometimes late 1700s. So yeah. I always challenge that premise. It's, because what you're essentially saying when you're saying they take all the jobs, like the jobs, it's like you, because you were born here, you have a right to a job. And you have a right to force an employer to hire you over someone else that they want to hire because you were born here.
Mhm.
So that premise of usually part of what I challenge is that premise of, if they take the jobs and the jobs belong to someone, and if the jobs belong to someone, then someone is being forced to provide those jobs to the Americans. So that is one of the things that I challenge. And honestly, I've found people were like, when you can tell the person is like, oh, I haven't thought about that before. Um, so that's part of what I do, but also um, it is really being afraid. It's being afraid of competition. It's being afraid that you can't get better and you cannot compete with an immigrant who is another person. Again, is not an alien that is more capable than you inherently or anything. So be an American, compete. get better, improve.
Yep. And just as a reality, economically, immigrants create more jobs than they
Yeah.
so-called take.
Yeah, it's true. Though people, I think there are so many. If it were a matter essentially of telling people all the economic arguments in favor of immigration,
Yeah.
we would be we would be in a completely different situation. People don't care. I think it's
I know.
pretty
They
abstract to
don't.
them,
Yep.
and it doesn't. I don't know. It just does not.
Well, again, it's more red herrings. It's
Yeah.
the ultimate thing that they object to is they have a zero-sum mentality, so they don't get the economics, and they do believe that they're entitled to a job because they were born there. They don't want competition. It's the same reason they oppose trade, because they're
Yeah.
competing with some guy in China who's working, and that's not acceptable to them. They have this job, they always had this job, and they should keep this job. Roman asks, "Are you a globalist?"
Me?
Yeah.
Uh, can you define that?
No, it's an anti-concept. So there is no
Yeah.
such thing as a
Like,
globalist,
yeah.
Roman. So it's meaningless, completely meaningless. Um, Enric, what led to immigration restrictions beginning in the 1920s and earlier?
I have a talk that I gave in 2024 at OCON about this topic. You can find it. It's called America's History of Immigration Restrictions. So I give a thorough explanation in that talk, but I can tell you essentially, um, it was philosophically it was essentially tribalism, and these sort of what we've been talking about just now about the jobs. So the first big immigration restriction was the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882, and that excluded the Chinese because there were all these concerns about the Chinese work harder
Yeah.
and they work like 16 hours a day, and we cannot compete with that. Or the Chinese, they look different, they eat different food. Like you can see this tribalism in discussions in newspapers at the time and everything. And they were declared an invasion, the Chinese, which is similar to what we hear today. And then after that, what essentially happened is a lot of um, really bad pseudoscientific um, research, so to speak, and claims started gaining traction. And there were a lot of people saying that, immigrants from Eastern Europe are inherently lazy or are inherently flawed or are inherently just, they're affecting the racial stock of America, and we cannot have that. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of the reasoning behind the Johnson era in 1924 was eugenics and trying to keep the quote racial purity of America. In fact, there was this book called The Passing of the Great Race by an author called Madison Grant, who was a notorious Eugene, I cannot pronounce it. He
Mm.
was favored eugenics.
Yep.
Um, who his book was cited in congressional debates over the Johnson-Reed Act. And then Adolf Hitler would write a letter, I forget to whom, but he would write that that book was his Bible, as he called it, and part of what inspired his own, insane ideology that ended up in the Holocaust. The same book that inspired the Johnson-Reed Act in 1924.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of that going on, and then people ate that up. And in that talk that I gave, I show how these horrible ideas really permeated the culture and how people were, even you saw ads on the newspaper and just people really embracing these eugenics, and they were in favor of many of these restrictions to in order to preserve this quote racial purity of America, as if America were a race.
Great. Jacob, do we underestimate the damage caused by World War I so much damage to the culture, way of life, immigration restriction, I guess, came from, well, soon after World War One.
Yeah, that it's I mean, the immigration restrictions started before that. They had starting to gain steam way before that, but yeah, there were many people coming here after the war, which probably exacerbated um this issue. Um, I haven't particularly looked into that in detail. So, I mean, other than, there were many people escaping the war coming to America. But yeah, it's possible that it is underestimated. What do you think, Yaron?
Yeah, I think World War One is a major, major turning point in Western history. I think it's the end of the 19th century. It's the end of the optimism, confidence in Western civilization is destroyed. A whole generation of young people, young men, die. And Ayn Rand said somewhere, I can't remember where, she said something like, if you didn't glimpse kind of the pre-World War One world, you don't know what life can be, right? So
Yeah.
there was a sense of optimism and positive, a positive view of life, a benevolence that just never came back to the West after that.
Yeah.
The trench warfare all over Europe, the millions of kids that died, just horrific. And I think that that just deflated a lot of people. It turned them towards eugenics, even more so. And it made the West much more defensive and much more scared and much more afraid and much less confident in its own values. And I think World War II happens as a consequence, and I think the immigration restrictions and a lot of bad things happen at around the same time.
Yeah, no, for sure. But so the eugenics movements and in America and with respect to immigration started before
Starts
even.
well before, but I think
So,
that I think World War One accelerates all the bad
yeah.
trends. It makes them stronger. It makes them
Mm.
bigger because of that loss of trust in civilization, Western civilization, its ability to progress and its morality after the horrors of World War One. But it's interesting. It's worthy of study at some point. Somebody should write a book. Um, Lyran writes, what do you think of the movies about immigration, like Green Card or The Proposal?
I haven't watched them.
Okay, so I can't remember The
Yeah.
Proposal. I can't remember what that's about. But I really like Green Card. Green Card's a fun movie. It's Gerard Depardieu, who is a immigrant to the not an immigrant. He's got a visa in the United States, but he wants to stay. So he marries this American for the green card, and they set it up and then they try to fool the immigration agents that come to interview them and determine that they're really married and all of that. So they have to learn about each other and everything. And in the process, of course, they fall in love. But then he gets deported because the agents discover that. Anyway, it's a cute movie. It shows the insanity of and the lengths to which people will go in order to become American citizens. And I'm with Gerard. That is, you do what you have to do to become an American citizen. I always said people would say, "Yeah, you're a legal immigrant, so you're okay." And I'd say, if I couldn't come here legally, I would have come illegally, and I would have found a way. And that always stops them. That's the reality. If your values are such that America is the place to live, the only place to live, then you find a way to get you. So I like the movie. I like Gerard Depardieu. So it's a comedy. It's a romantic comedy. It's fun. I think
Maybe
you'd like
maybe
it.
I'll watch it. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
make the one movie make that the one movie I watched this year, Yaron.
Called Green Card. I don't know if it's the one movie I would encourage you to watch this year, but it's a decent movie. There are great movies that you should watch this year, but that's for another time. Let's see. Roman, how should immigrants with convictions breaching the penalty code? I don't know what that means. And their potential threat to commit crimes be treated by the state. Well, if they're criminals, they should be put in jail or deported or both. I guess I'm not sure what the question is.
And if they're trying to come to the US, I mean, probably shouldn't be let in, depending on what the crime is.
Yep.
If it's a violent crime, for instance. And I say depending on what the crime is because you can literally be accused of a crime of terrorism by the Venezuelan government, as Maria Corina Machado has been, for instance, the
Yep.
opposition leader in Venezuela, and it's BS. It's not true.
Yep.
And rightly, I think she's currently still in America. She's been let into America because those charges are not real. So,
Well, because she gave the Nobel Prize to Trump, so how can he not allow her to stay in America? Roman says, "What is national security?"
that's a great question. I think that nowadays anything can be, everything and anything is done in the name of national security. So we need an objective definition of what is national security. And because that has become, maybe it always, probably you will know this better than me, Yaron, but it was maybe not ever well defined what it actually is. So we need a real good concept, true objective concept of what that is. Because right now everything is national, like everything is an emergency or everything is done in the interest of national security.
No, it's become an excuse for statists to take control of our lives. It's basically the protection of individual rights, the rights of Americans, their lives and their property from the protection from foreigners. So to the extent that somebody poses a threat to the lives or property of Americans, you can ban them for national security reasons. National security relates to the lives and property of Americans. And there are very few people like that. So that's terrorists, right? In the context of immigration, it's spies. Like if Russia sends a bunch of people who are going to spy for Russia, that's a violation of national security. But that's about it. Terrorists and spies. I can't think of any other category that would be that. Islamists in the context of you understand the war you're engaged in with the Islamist movement, the jihadi movement. It's a subsection of Muslims who are committed to the destruction of the West. They're a threat to national security because they want to overturn the government of the US. So things like that.
Yep.
Abam, Yaron, you see voting as a privilege and not a right. Could you expand on that, please? Well, for another time, we can get into this. I think I've spoken this in the past. I don't think voting is that important in a free society. Voting is a relatively minor issue. It's not. There's not a lot to vote on. The voting is not that important, but it's really, really important that the people who vote know the system of government that they are supposed to vote about. And I think anybody who's going to vote should have to pass a test that, you understand the Constitution, you understand the Declaration, not the kind of test they do today, which is you memorize a bunch of answers to a bunch of questions, but a real deep understanding of the nature of government, not an opinion about it, just the nature of it. So when you vote, you're voting with some knowledge of at least the system that's engaged in it. If you also think about it just mathematically, your vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. Most of us go to vote to satisfy our own sense of we want to vote, we want a voice, we want to stake a claim. It doesn't really matter in the big picture. So I just don't think voting is that important. Citizenship is important for other reasons. As Augustina said, you get a passport, so you get to travel. You can give up your previous citizenship, so you don't get taxed, you don't get regulated. So there are issues with citizenship that do not relate to voting. I think voting is a separate issue, and in an ideal world, it's not clear you need passports. I mean, a lot of things would be different in an ideal world. So I'm not going to get hung up on the issue of voting because it's not like that's an important issue right now. That is not what we're fighting about. All right, Jackson says, I can't wait to read your and Brandon's essay. Nothing has provided me as much joy since I started studying objectivism than Ayn Rand's biography. Her life was greater than fiction. Someone, please make a movie.
Yeah,
A
that'd be
good
cool
one.
if
We need a
someone
good
a
movie.
good yeah, I'll watch that movie. I would watch that
Oh,
movie.
even Agustina will watch a movie
Yeah,
about
so
Ayn Rand. That's good.
yeah, no, thank you. The article's coming later this week by the end of the week, and we're really excited. And yeah, it's a story that it's really worth telling from specifically from that perspective of, an immigrant to America. So I'm very excited.
Excellent. All right, Danielle asks, how did you get into Ayn Rand?
So I heard about her a few years ago, several years ago now. I guess I'm getting old. So I heard about her. I was listening to a radio show. I was in the United States at that point. I was working legally for the haters. I was working in California, in North Lake Tahoe in California, and I heard, that statistic or no, not statistic, sorry, that fact that people threw out. I don't know if it's true anymore, but that Atlas Shrugged is the second most influential book for Americans, second to the Bible or something like
On the
that.
CEOs, and it was never true.
Yeah, I figured many years
It's a
later.
really bad statistic, right?
But and someone said like, and at that point, like I heard a comment like, "Oh, that's ironic" or something like that. And because
Yeah.
I was really not a fan of religion anymore, having been raised Catholic, I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And it caught my attention, so I looked into Atlas Shrugged, and then the rest is history. I read everything I could get my hands on. That's a very abbreviated version of the story.
So you first read Atlas Shrugged?
Yeah, but like when I read it, so I was in law school and I was first year of law school, and it was long book, obviously. I had it on my computer. It was hard to read. I didn't have much time, so I read it, but not with the attention and the detail that I should have, that it deserves, and not with and it took me a long time. So I don't even remember if I finished it at that point. But what really got me into Ayn Rand was I was at a bookstore in Argentina and I saw The Virtue of Selfishness and I bought it. I was like, oh, this is the same lady. And I bought it. I found the title really intriguing, and then that's what really impacted me.
Cool. Marilyn, I think some people, especially union members, oppose immigration because many immigrants will work harder for less money.
Yeah, I think that's true. For instance, I remember in 2016, Bernie Sanders coming
Yep.
out against immigration because of the
Yep.
unions, essentially.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not
Democrats were
like
always anti-immigration because of
yeah,
unions.
yeah. So it's not like the left is actually pro-immigration,
Yeah.
for other reasons too. But like, I mean, we can go into a discussion why the left is not pro-immigration, but like they favor some immigration, but you have to be poor and destitute and an asylum seeker or seeking refuge for them to accept you, but they are not really that into H-1B visas because it's ambitious people who want to come here to work.
Yeah.
It's like, so I don't think either the left or the right are really pro-immigration.
No.
So
Lone DeSensa says, better ideas is the answer. If one understands and commits to a life of reason, purpose, and self-esteem, they wouldn't waste time thinking about who's stealing their jobs or who has what skin tone. Skin tone. Yes, I
yeah,
think that's absolutely right. Roman asks, have you read Infidel by Ayaan Hirsi Ali?
I did. No, not Infidel actually. I read Prey, not Infidel.
Okay, which was a second book, I think.
Yeah, second
Infidel
or
was the first book.
third.
Third, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Infidel's a great book. Good. All right, last question. Well, it's not a question, I guess. Rue says, Augustina, watch Brooklyn, another movie recommendation. Um, it's one of my favorites. It's also about an immigrant. It's also an immigration story.
Oh, okay.
So
Right.
If you like immigration stories, you should watch immigration movies.
Yeah, but I'd rather read immigration memoirs and biographies and whatnot. That's my
He's a
favorite
reader,
genre.
not a watcher. Okay.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, I will watch shows, but movies is, we can go into a whole discussion about this, but I'm not that attracted to movies. It's just, no,
Ninotchka? You ever
I don't
seen
know
Ninotchka?
exactly what it is. What?
You ever seen Ninotchka?
No, I haven't
All
seen
right.
most of the movies that most humans have watched.
All
Yeah.
right. I think we got one more. Speaking of Ayn Rand's life, I see that Ayn Rand's Sense of Life documentary is streaming free on Tubi. Is it worth
Oh,
watching? Absolutely.
yeah.
It's a fabulous documentary. Definitely worth watching.
I have watched that. Oh, documentaries, by the way, I watch a lot of that.
Okay.
But not
Okay.
movies. But yeah,
She doesn't like movies.
that documentary is great.
Yep. Definitely worth watching. I don't know what Tubi is. I guess it's a streaming thing,
Yeah.
but yeah, if it's free on Tubi, definitely watch it. It's fantastic. I've got the DVD or the Blu-ray or something somewhere in the house. All right, this was a pleasure. Thank you, Augustina. Oh, one more. Neo says, when I talk to my immigrant friends and I tell them it's their job to integrate into our culture, they get mad. They say that the West is about different cultures working together. Any opinions?
Um, I I find it interesting that I've never met an immigrant that has told me that, and I've met many, and I am one myself. So, I mean, I don't. I mean, it really. It's like the question is just assumes so many premise. Like integrate. What do you mean integrate? Because right now you have people who think that, what's his name that went to testify in front of Congress? I think it was the director of USCIS. No, who was it that said that it claims that white culture is being
Yeah,
erased or
this
whatever, and
idiot about
essentially
white
it's
identity. Yeah, I showed
yeah,
clips of that.
yeah. So when someone without much context tells me that sort of thing, I immediately am very like, okay, well, what is it that that you want them to integrate to? Is it that you don't like taco trucks? I'm not saying this person is saying
Yeah.
that, but many of them are like, yeah, I don't like the taco trucks, and I don't like the smelly Indian food, and
Well, he said
and
something about white food. He misses
yeah,
white food. The
yeah.
tasteless, bland,
Yeah, what
you
is
know.
white food even? Like what burger? I'm not entirely sure.
Well, and they
But
don't realize that like French cooking that's good and Italian cooking, the only reason those taste good is because in like the 15th century or the 14th century, they started importing spices from the East, right? Everything, any spice, any kind of flavor that exists in European cooking has its origins in Asia. European food, if you go to England and you ask for British food, you can get a sense of this, is bland, tasteless, horrible, disgusting. It takes the rest of the world to make European food edible. That's just my view.
yeah.
That's
I
white food.
yeah. I'm used to Argentinian food and I cook Argentinian food in my house, and my husband, who's an American, is extremely happy about that. And it's definitely not bland. But yeah, like
That's because the Italians who came to Argentina got the spices from Asia.
yeah. But yeah, is it your job, like if you come to America to like respect individual rights and to like not violate the rights of other people and
Yep.
to be a peaceful person and work and not get try to game the system and get, yeah, that is your job, as it's your job to as an American to do that if you want to thrive in America, and if you want to respect what we stand for here, which is individual rights. But that's no different than people that Americans or immigrants, we all have to do that as a like very basic thing to live in society.
Yeah, I mean, America is also a melting pot. So remind them of the melting pot analogy. Yeah, you keep the good stuff, but you do integrate into the good stuff in America, the principles on which made America. I think it is your responsibility as an immigrant to absorb.
Yeah, and of course, like there's things that that is the most important thing. But then after that, if you're peaceful and you know, you're not violating anyone's rights and you're not barbaric, which most immigrants are not, then that's the basic. But like, yeah, if you want to integrate, yeah, like I love football now, and I used to be like, I don't understand this game. What even is this? And yeah, it's a quintessentially American sport, and it's great. But that, you know, I wouldn't be any more or less American if I didn't like it. So,
Yep. Yeah, I used to like football, don't anymore. So you can even change that.
what was your team or is, I don't know, your favorite team?
49ers, the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh no, you're on.
Well, they had
I
the
don't
best
like.
quarterback in all of history. Joe Montana was the best quarter, and then they had the best what do you call wide receiver ever, Jerry Rice. They were a great team. Late 80s, early 90s. They were amazing.
Interesting. I became a Lions fan.
A Lions fan, Detroit. Oh God.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've never
Anyway,
set foot in Detroit. I just got my pick of 32 teams and I looked into them and I watched documentaries and I
there you
picked the
go.
Lions. So,
So I don't watch football anymore. It's too violent. So I've written it off. So I like good quarterbacks. So I usually gravitate towards the teams that have great quarterbacks.
well, Jared Goff with the Lions is great, I think.
I don't watch football anymore, so I don't know.
You're missing out.
Yeah, I'm missing out. All right.
All right.
Thanks, Agustina. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
being
much for
here.
having me. Bye.
Sure. Bye. Bye, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. East Coast time. 3 p.m. East Coast time.